How's it going, guys? It's Cole from See-Through Panel showing off the Collected Toppi Volume 4 by Sergio Toppi and Magnetic Press, retailing for $25. As you can tell, it's oversized and does not fit into frame, but it is the really nice rounded-edged hardcovers that Magnetic Press has become known for, really. As always, I'm not going to be spoiling too much, just talking roughly about the short stories inside, the brief plot summary, and then the art. So I am going to be hinting at some of the, or directly spoiling, some of the endings of these stories, but they are short stories, and they are pretty much impossible to ruin because of the way that Toppi tells stories and draws. So if you are worried about that sort of thing, read the book first, come back after, we can talk about it. I've never talked about a Toppi book directly on the channel besides in the haul videos. I have a lot to catch up on. I've got like 10 of the Toppi collection books, and I'm on 4, obviously. I just read 4. I'm trying to catch up. So this book collects 5 stories called, you can't see the first one, The Kakombo Dossier, Bawumba My Son, Warramunga 1856, Mufaluzzi, and Pacific Island. Pronunciations are probably not correct. This is a book located in Africa. All the stories are located in the Africa area. The way that the Toppi books are collected is they take short stories and kind of centralize them in one location and then publish them as a collection of that area. So we've got South America, now we've got Africa. I'm sure we're going to get, I think we're going to have an Asian one that I already haven't read yet though. And we open with what Toppi does best, and that is animals. The turtle is just, the tortoise probably, is just ridiculously well drawn. He's got this knack for drawing animals that is almost photorealistic, but yet seems completely organic and fits with his style, where these lines seem so true to a real tortoise leg, kind of scaly, kind of uneven patterning, the stretching of the neck. But when you look closer, it really just looks like Toppi mark making like he does down here. It just looks like a ton of little marks. But when kind of viewed as a whole, it makes the perfect image of a tortoise. And that's what I love about his ability to draw both landscapes, characters, animals, everything, is that on the micro, it looks like a ton of random marks that make no sense, but on the macro, it looks like a beautiful, well-constructed, true-to-life page, and I always find that really interesting and really, really unique and singular. So the first story is called The Kakombo Dossier. It's about this little trinket right here called the Kakombo, and what it is essentially a monkey's paw, except for you don't make a wish. You just get it, and then fortune and fame follow all your pursuits. But eventually, there comes a time when things turn. And so this explorer, who is not particularly good at his job, in fact, he's very bad at his job and gets people killed because he's inept, gets it and becomes super successful. And even though he's super successful, sometimes his arrogance leads to other people's demise or misfortune because he's kind of just a dick. But even then, he's very successful in everything he does, eventually getting a beautiful bride, not the one that he wants. Can't really spoil that because nudity on those pages. But he gets a bride that is not of his choosing, but a bride nonetheless, has a nice life. Eventually, things catch up with him, and this amazing little, not even a panel, because it's kind of in the background in the blank space. Really interesting layouts. I mean, you're not going to see any typical layouts from Toppi. But just on the art side, obviously, I adore this work. I am partial to, as much as I hate to admit it, I do prefer art with a million little lines on the page to the cleaner, simpler art. I do love that other style as well, but just on the whole, I'm more likely to like a page of art that is just riddled with lines than I am to like one that's nice and clean. First story, I think, opens really strong. All of his stories kind of have this fairy tale aspect to them where it's kind of teaching you a lesson and exploring a place and its wildlife. And he seemed to be either, I don't know anything about him as a person, by the way, Sergio Toppi, either a very worldly man or a man who loves to read about the world because he loves to explore different areas. He loves geography. He loves the plant life and the wildlife of these areas. And so our second story, Bawumba My Son, is about a crane who adopts a human child who grows up to be a warrior, and he wants a shield and a spear. He gets the spear pretty easily, but he wants his father, the crane, I think it's a crane, it's probably not a crane. He wants the father to get him a shield. So he begins to go and ask all of these animals if he can borrow a piece of their hide to make his son a shield, and they say no. And eventually he has to trick... Well, I'll show you the page. He has to trick I believe a hippopotamus into eating a beehive, where it then dies in the night from indigestion, and they tear off a piece of its hide to make a shield that way. And after that, the son becomes a prolific warrior, absolutely wins every battle he's in, complete conquest, destroys everyone, can't be stopped, until new people arrive, let's say. You can probably tell what's happening here from this panel. And he challenges them. Unfortunately, they are armed with something better than a shield and a spear, and he is defeated, where the shield is collected and taken as kind of a trophy and ends up at an antique store where our narrator lives. And the crane is kind of a haunting figure for this narrator. He's kind of wants the shield back, and he's tapping on the glass. The narrator appears in the first story as well. Made me think he would be a continuing character, which is super rare in Toppi's work. Almost non-existent, actually, now that I think about it. But he was only here for the first two stories. This is probably my least favorite of the stories here. But by far, it is not a bad story. It is a fantastic story with the classic trappings of a Toppi narrative, which I really enjoy. It's just the weakest of these. Warmongers 1856. I get this one and another one mixed up. Okay, yeah. This is just about two explorers who find a man who keeps saying, "I am Taluala the snake," and he turns all of their misfortune into a beautiful bounty every step they take, doing seemingly magical things. He turns a tree into a kangaroo so that they can eat. He turns rocks into piles of gold. There's all these things. And eventually, although he is making their life heaven, they do turn on him, and it does not necessarily end well for them. This one I really enjoyed. It's very simple. There's not a ton of dialogue. You get to see some stuff Toppi doesn't draw, which is kind of like a magical type thing. Plus, the panel structure here is a little more typical than what Toppi normally does, so it was interesting to see him take the three-step action panel to show movement or to show a transformation or something like that. It was interesting to see this transformation, which I think he pulled off well. And then this page here is just awesome. The ground texture is what, even though a man is being shot and probably killed here, the ground texture is what really interested me. Just ridiculous amounts of texture, and you can really feel the dirt on the page. That's another thing that Toppi excels at. He excels at basically everything. Yeah, a great little story. There's more of that texture up here. Another animal drawing. Tons of lines on the snake body. I'll start moving a bit quicker on these. Mufaluzzi is a story about two brothers who are guiding to, let's say, I think they're just white men. I think they're just white men that came here, and they come here to hunt. One of them guides the hunter and lets him stay at his place while he hunts, and the two brothers, who I believe are from this area, are kind of their guides. They take him to where the good prey is. They take him to where the tracks are, show him the best stuff to hunt. And this guy that's hunting is really bloodthirsty. He's actually called Major Bloodthirsty. It's his rank and name. I thought it was a joke that this guy calls him that, but they refer to him as that in his proper name. And he just can't get enough. He ends up doing a terrible thing to one of the brothers, and without spoiling, because I'm spoiling too much. And it's kind of a redemption story that has a quite happy ending, and kind of like a punchline at the end, which you don't expect a lot of. There's definitely humor in Toppi's work, but you don't expect a direct punchline. This actually made me laugh a lot, because the winner is actually someone you like in this story, which is pretty rare for a Toppi story. And I really enjoyed actually having an uplifting ending. I do want to get this on the page. I'll have to turn it, but there's actually a bird on its back. And it's just so menacing. The scale of it is ridiculous. It's just absolutely gigantic. It's obviously in the foreground here, but the way he sets this up just makes it seem like this colossal, monstrous beast. And it still remains that way even in the distance, as it gets closer and closer through this really well done grass, actually. Very simple, but works very well for moving, parting grass. And just gets closer and closer. And probably too close. That's a bit of a spoiler there if you're paying attention, but the last, I really enjoyed that story. I don't want to go too deep into it. Probably my second favorite of all these stories, with the last story, the Pacific Island, being my favorite. This story is a lot more ethereal, I think, than a regular Toppi story, and it's still got that fairy tale vibe where it's this man who is stuck on a desert island. The reason he got here is just because he felt like his life was boring and stagnant, and he hears this beating of this drum and he wants to follow it, so he gets in a boat and follows it out to sea, where it brings him to this island where this crazy masked figure is trying to guide him and kind of helps him, tells him what to do. This island attracts people like you. It's where you belong. It's chosen you, and it guides him to go further and further, where he helps this man who's been sitting in this kind of cage, hung up for days without food, being punished by a man who kind of owns the island, who is a real piece of crap. This is really good use of negative space by Toppi for that nose piercing, which looks amazing. Tons of hatching and lines on that page. And so it's a story of this man trying to survive under the rule of this tyrant, and this mysterious masked figure always helping him, and just kind of appearing out of nowhere, out of thin air, showing up with tools or knowledge that he can't possibly have, and doing things that he couldn't possibly do, like this gigantic stone. He gives him the power to lift it up and just walk it around over his shoulder. To turn the page for you, but like this. And yeah, it's a really great story. I think it was just more of a saga. It almost felt like more of an odyssey, more of an epic tale to me than the others. Toppi stories are usually pretty isolated, pretty personal. But this felt like really like almost like an adaptation of a novel or something, which I don't think it is. Could be. But yeah, I had just a lot of things that I like about it. It was more of a full, complete story. All of these stories are full and complete, but this felt really fleshed out and really well done, and definitely was my favorite of all the stories. So let's get a little further in here. This guy means business too. And overall, I mean, this was a great book. It's been probably a year, maybe 2 years, somewhere in the middle, yeah, since I read a Toppi book, and I kind of forgot how awesome they were. You can just pick them up, put them down. Short stories are usually like 20 pages, and you get 4 or 5 of them, and they always have something that'll hook you. One of the stories will definitely hook you, if not all of them. I was never disinterested here. I do like to sit down, read one story, and ruminate on it, come back. I don't like to binge like anthologies or short story collections. It's just how I like to read them. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed everything in this book. I want to go back to the table of contents and make sure I got everything. Warmonga, Mufaluzzi. Which one is... See, I've already forgotten. No, I think I got them all. Yeah, I got it. I have the snake, the Taluala, the snake one. It's called Warmonga, and I never remember that. But I'm really excited to read more Toppi. I've got so many books to read. I've been trying to get through my to-read pile, but it just grows so much. And I really, really want to read this, but I try not to read stuff before I've done my haul video on them, so I probably won't. But I'm just like chomping at the bit to read this. I've got 2 and 3, and it's killing me. But eventually I'll read them. I'll read them after the haul video. Probably going to go through some Hellboy next. I'm just rambling at this point. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Have a good one. Peace.